Hello everyone, I'm Kira and I work with Raymond Carter, the CEO of Ray's Enterprise. I've stayed silent for too long, but I can't do this anymore. I told everything. The fraud, the blackmail, the threats, the abuse. I told them how Raymond controlled us, how he forced us to cover up his crimes, how he and his goons had come to my home and beaten me just for wanting to quit. Then I posted the video. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. People were outraged. They called for investigations, demanding Raymond be held accountable. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Raymond.
You stupid bitch. You think you can ruin me? You think anyone will believe your pathetic lies? You're finished. Don't ever step foot in my company again.
My boss, Raymond Carter, was the devil in human form. The kind of man who smiled at you in meetings while planning how to ruin your life behind closed doors. He ran the company like a crime syndicate, pulling every dirty trick in the book to keep his power. Bribery, blackmail, embezzlement. He thrived on corruption. We all knew it. Every single employee. But no one dared to say a word, because the moment you questioned him, you disappeared. At first, I convinced myself that keeping my head down was the safest option. I told myself that as long as I did my job, as long as I followed orders, I'd be fine. But working for a man like Raymond meant being part of his crimes. We were forced to doctor financial reports, forge contracts, and manipulate investors. He made us lie to auditors, knowing that if the truth ever came out, we'd take the fall while he walked away clean. Raymond was cruel. He would force us all to bow when he walked into the office and greet him like a king. One time, he made Shella wear a t-shirt with the words, "I am a failure," written on it just because she arrived at work 20 minutes late. He would force us to work even on public holidays. I remember one morning when he made Mark bark like a dog just because he brought his pet to the office. Raymond sent the dog outside and, as punishment, ordered Mark to bark like a dog. He also destroyed Martin's phone because he answered a call during office hours. He grabbed the phone and smashed it on the floor. One day I'd had enough. I want out. I'm done with this. I can't keep covering for you. Raymond leaned back in his leather chair, swirling the expensive whiskey in his glass. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look surprised.
Quitting? That's a big decision, Kira. Let me think about it.
His tone was calm, but his eyes were cold. There was no negotiating with a man like him. I left his office that day feeling lighter than I had in years. I had made my choice. I was walking away, and nothing was going to stop me. I was wrong. That night, as I was settling into bed, I heard a loud bang at my door. Before I could react, the door flew open, and they stormed in. 3 muscular men, their faces blank and unbothered, like this was just another job to them. And behind them was Raymond, dressed in his usual expensive suit, watching with an amused smirk.
You really thought you could just quit?
I barely had time to scream before the first punch landed. A sharp, blinding pain exploded across my face as I crashed to the floor. One of the men grabbed my hair, yanking me up before slamming me against the wall. My ribs screamed in protest as another kicked me in the stomach, knocking the breath out of me. Raymond didn't lift a finger. He just watched, smiling like it was entertainment.
This is a warning, Kira. You don't get to leave me. You don't get to even talk about leaving.
I tried to crawl away, but a boot pressed down on my hand, pinning me to the floor. They weren't just beating me. They were making sure I understood that I belonged to Raymond. When they were finally done, I lay on the ground, coughing, my body aching, my vision blurred. Raymond crouched down beside me. He looked like the devil himself.
Be smart, Kira. This was mercy. Next time, I won't be so kind.
Then they left, like nothing had happened. My blood stained the floor. My body was a mess of bruises, and I could barely move. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't afraid anymore. Raymond thought he had broken me. He thought this was over. He had no idea what was coming. I went back to work after a week of nursing my injuries. My body ached and the bruises still showed faintly on my skin, but I forced myself to move forward. I had no choice. I needed the money. Raymond didn't say a word to me when I returned. He didn't even look at me. But I felt the punishment in other ways. My workload doubled, my chair was mysteriously broken one morning, and my emails to HR about my paycheck went unanswered. A month passed, no salary, no explanations. I confronted him in his office, standing before his massive desk while he leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen between his fingers. "Where's my paycheck?"
Oh, that. Still thinking about it. Maybe next month. Maybe never.
He smiled, daring me to push back. He wanted to see me beg. I walked out of his office, my hands clenched into fists. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to beg him. Never. That night, I set up my camera in my tiny apartment, took a deep breath, and hit record. "Hello, everyone. I'm Kira, and I work with Raymond Carter, the CEO of Ray's Enterprise. I've stayed silent for too long, but I can't do this anymore. I told everything. The fraud, the blackmail, the threats, the abuse. I told them how Raymond controlled us, how he forced us to cover up his crimes, how he and his goons had come to my home and beaten me just for wanting to quit. Then I posted the video. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. People were outraged. They called for investigations, demanding Raymond be held accountable. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Raymond.
You stupid bitch. You think you can ruin me? You think anyone will believe your pathetic lies? You're finished. Don't ever step foot in my company again.
I smiled as he screamed. I had won, or so I thought. The next day, new videos began circulating online. Not just one, but dozens. They showed my coworkers, the same ones who had suffered under Raymond, now singing his praises.
Mr. Carter is the kindest boss I've ever had.
He paid my mother's hospital bills when no one else would.
He's like a father to us. Kira is just bitter because she got fired for being lazy.
Lie after lie after lie. The narrative shifted. Raymond wasn't the villain anymore. I was. The internet turned against me like a raging storm. Strangers flooded my social media, calling me jealous, a liar, a gold digger. Some even found my address and showed up at my apartment just to scream at me, throwing trash at my door. I had no choice. I packed a bag and ran to my mother's house. My mother was so kind and took me in. I knew Raymond had forced my co-workers to defend him. I knew he had used his power to turn the world against me. I thought I hated him before. Now, I wanted revenge. I spent 2 weeks hiding at my mother's house, watching as Raymond basked in his victory. He was untouchable. The investigation into his company had been quietly dropped. He threw a lavish charity gala, acting like a saint while my name rotted in the mud. That was fine, because I wasn't finished. Revenge had to be more than just justice, it had to be unforgettable. Raymond loved control, but more than that, he loved his image. He wanted to be seen as powerful, generous, untouchable. So I was going to tear that image apart in the most humiliating way possible. The plan started with an invitation. I sent an anonymous tip to several news stations and influencers, claiming that I had undeniable proof of Raymond's crimes, and that I would be revealing everything at his upcoming gala. The internet exploded. Every major media outlet made plans to attend the event. Then came step 2, Raymond's precious employees. They thought they were safe. I made sure they knew they weren't. Using a burner account, I leaked recordings of private conversations I had secretly saved over the years. Audio of my coworkers whispering about his crimes, mocking him behind his back, complaining about how he used them like puppets. The employees who had defended him publicly were now scrambling, exposed as liars. The internet turned on them next, questioning why they had lied, what they were hiding. Some panicked and went silent. Others, terrified of being caught in the storm, switched sides again, claiming they had been forced to defend Raymond out of fear. Raymond was on a firing spree, firing anyone who switched sides. He tried clearing his name, but people were becoming confused. Doubt was creeping in. And then came the final touch, the destruction of his perfect, polished reputation. I sent an anonymous message to Raymond's biggest rival, an equally corrupt but smarter businessman who had been waiting for an opportunity to take him down. Attached were emails, financial records, and evidence of embezzlement that Raymond thought he had buried. The rival leaked everything. 10 minutes before the gala, the internet exploded with the scandal. News stations rushed to verify the information. Reporters who had previously ignored me when I cried out were now desperate for an exclusive. Raymond didn't know any of this when he stepped onto the stage, dressed in his finest suit, grinning at the flashing cameras. He didn't know what was waiting for him. The moment he began his speech, phones buzzed, whispers spread, faces turned cold. Then, from the back of the room, a voice rang out. One of his former employees, the first to crack under pressure. I'd approached him first, knowing he was a scaredy cat. I made him promise to challenge Raymond, and he did a perfect job.
Why don't you tell them about the money you stole, Raymond? Or how you forced us to lie for you?
The room fell silent. Everyone was waiting to see Raymond physically denial everything, but that was not the case. Raymond seemed to be unable to form words. For the first time, he looked so rattled.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, really? Then maybe you can explain these emails circulating the internet.
He held up his phone, and soon others were doing the same. Screens lit up with exposed messages, proof of bribes, blackmail, and financial fraud. A reporter shouted a question, then another.
Is it true you've been embezzling company funds for years? Your former employee didn't lie like you made us believe, right?
What about the workers you forced to lie for you?
Raymond stepped back, sweat beading on his forehead. The guests, which were politicians, celebrities, wealthy investors, began murmuring, their smiles slipping into disgust. Then, the rival businessman I had contacted earlier made his move. He stood up from his seat, adjusting his cufflinks with a smirk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all know what this means. Mr. Raymond is nothing but a fraud. He's been using your money to line his own pockets while pretending to be generous.
The audience erupted into chaos. Some people stormed out, not wanting to be associated with him. Others pulled out their phones, recording every second of his downfall. Raymond's hands shook. He turned, ready to make a run for it. As he started running, I think the universe conspired against him. He missed a step and fell, and his expensive suit tore completely. And in a matter of seconds, he was half naked. Paparazzi went wild, taking pictures. And then someone said loudly,
Nice boxers, Raymond.
Everyone laughed. But then the doors burst open before he could escape. I walked in with the cops I'd called on him.
Raymond Carter, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and coercion.
As he tried to speak, I stepped forward and slapped him hard on his cheek. You made me look like an insane liar to the world. You're going to pay for your actions. The cameras caught every second as they handcuffed him. He fought, screaming that it was all a setup, that I had done this to him out of envy. But the evidence was overwhelming. No one believed him. I followed as they dragged him out, his expensive suit wrinkled, his hair a mess, his face drained of color. By the next morning, his company had collapsed. His assets were frozen. Investors pulled out. His employees, who were trying to be loyal, abandoned him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. The media tore him apart. And the final blow? He was found guilty of a murder case while the cops were investigating the evidence against him. Apparently out of anger, he'd killed his ex-girlfriend, but he covered up the case with his money. This time he couldn't. There was no coming back from this. 1 year later, Raymond was 6 months into serving a 25-year sentence. The last I heard, he wasn't doing well in prison. It turned out he was not doing well in prison. When inmates learned of what he had done outside, they made his life hell. He was nicknamed Toilet CEO and was assigned to clean the toilets. The inmates made him bow just as he had made us, his employees, do. They also made him wear an old suit they found in the trash and forced him to walk around like a boss, all while making fun of him. As for me, I moved to a new city, started my own business, and surrounded myself with good people. The internet had long since turned in my favor, and I had built a new life from the ruins of my past. I felt happy and free. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.